I remember when we first started this podcast, you guys kept telling me we needed like an intro, like something to say at the beginning. No, you weren't even here yet.
No, I wasn't here.
Okay. You weren't back yet. But the only thing I could ever think of is when Joe Rogan goes, "Hello, friends." Like all the time.
You say that every morning.
Every morning.
You come storming in, hello, with your coffee. Hello, friends. Except for not with that accent. And
I'm
we're like,
British today.
Hi, friend.
That's where I got that from. And I just think it's kind of funny, so I stick with it.
Yeah, it works.
So today we're going to talk about weird artists.
And weird art things.
Weird art things. No, we wanted to do a podcast called Artists Are Weird. Just because Cassie and I kind of have some shared experience with artists, her way more than me. And we're always kind of telling funny stories about things that happened in college or when she was working at the museum. We're like, we always say, like, we need to do a podcast of this. We need to do a podcast.
Yeah, weird stories.
So here we are.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Why don't you tell the folks who you are and what you do?
Oh, okay.
We forgot that one the first time.
I know, we did the first round. I'm Cassie. I've been working with Ryan for 3 years. Has it been 3 years?
I think so.
And my background is in art management. So I went to school to work in a museum and handle artwork and work with artists and do installations and framing and shipping and insurance and stuff like that. And got out of the rat race to be an assistant to an artist because I wanted a little less intense job. And now I work for Ryan, which is challenging but not intense. It's fun and laid back, but it's challenging.
Yeah.
In a
We've
good
gotta
way.
share challenges.
Because we're growing. So
Yeah.
it's a business challenge, so it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. So anything that almost anything. In the busy season, I helped out doing framing and
Yeah.
stuff. But
Ryan
for the
helped a
most part,
ton.
all the art comes from Cassie, packed and shipped and
Yeah.
framed and all that kind of stuff. So you're good for it.
Thanks. I
So
enjoy it.
you went to school at Boone at
Yep.
ASU.
ASU, Appalachian
What was
State.
your degree?
I was like you. I started out as graphic design.
Yeah.
And then, when you're an art student, you take like a little dabble of all these art classes. And I just really enjoyed it. And so I liked so many things that I kept changing my major to do all these other things.
Yeah.
And finally, I was like, I got to get out of here. I had been a student for forever
Yeah.
and had never really heard of art management, but stumbled across it when I'm digging through like check sheets, trying to figure out how I can get out of there faster. And I came across art management because it's half business classes, or it was at the time. It was half business classes and half art classes. And that's exactly what I had.
Yeah.
Because I love business classes too. And so that's how I ended up in art management, which is kind of crazy. And then the more I got into the major, the more I really found out that I liked it.
Until we were doing interviews for like a warehouse manager, and until we met you, I never knew there was a thing as art management.
I didn't either until I got into it.
Yeah.
It's like this hidden thing.
Yeah.
It's not really hidden.
It sounds like a terrible job, I think.
It sounds,
like-
it sounds made up.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it sounds
sound
made up.
real.
Yeah.
But so for you viewers, so you know, like my college degree was geared towards being a curator, which is basically the person at a museum or gallery that picks the art that goes on the wall and meets with the artists and, the fancy way to daydream about it would be like they wine and dine with the artists and they're in the art world. And
You would
this
take
and
them
that.
out to dinner and stuff like that?
We would.
Yeah.
But that's like the very smallest part of what a curator would do.
Yeah.
But then as I got into it, I ended up getting a summer job at the Mint Museum in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before they built their new museum uptown.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to do, before they did the big move, they had to do a comprehensive inventory of their entire permanent collection.
Okay.
And so I was part of a team. They hired some college students to help with this. And I was part of a team that helped go through every single item that they had in their permanent collection and check to make sure they were numbered and the condition and this and that. And it was it took all summer to go through their collection. They have tens of thousands of things.
Wow.
And I had the best time. And that's when I realized I wanted to be what's called a registrar, which is that position would be someone who handles the artwork. They deal with shipping and a lot of times framing and insurance and paperwork and stuff like that. So it's kind of a behind the scenes art, literally physically handling the artwork.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool and I really liked that. And so that's kind of the direction I went down and ended up doing installations for the museum on campus, the Turchin Center, for a while. And I worked at some other museums and galleries in the area too, but that was my main gig for a long time.
I got a random question for you.
Sure.
Now that we're talking about this stuff, is it really true that artists, like, their work goes up in value after they die? Is that typical?
Sometimes. I mean, because they can't make any more.
Yeah.
So it becomes limited.
Yeah.
Right?
How did they, like, when you see these crazy art auctions of, like, something that auctions for, like, $50 million, how does that work?
I don't know how all that works.
Is that just completely subjective?
I think so.
Okay.
But if you asked one of the experts at Christie's or Sotheby's, they'd probably say that there was reasoning behind
They're
it.
the auctioneer.
Well, I mean,
making a commission off
they're
of
the
it. Of
ones
course
that are
they're
in
gonna
charge
say.
of setting all those
Yeah,
standards. So I
was curious.
I don't really know. That
Like,
was
what do you
way beyond the realm I was in.
What do you think the most expensive piece of art you've ever handled was?
God, you're making me use my memory.
Ballpark.
I mean,
Was it
I've handled
30
some,
grand or 300 or 300 million?
Definitely no $1 million anything. But I mean, I've probably handled some things that are in the, quarter to $500,000 range. Not many.
Yeah.
Not many. But like when I was at the Mint Museum, I mean, they have a really impressive collection. I mean, I actually, so each week I would be in a different area of their collections with their employees, of course.
Yeah.
And one week I was in their print room, so it was the paper prints, and actually handled a couple of Salvador Dali's, which is cool. They were worth a bunch. Here's a funny story for you. You haven't heard this one.
Let's hear it.
So the very first day I was on that job, I was in the costume department. And so, which sounds weird. They call it costumes, but it's actually fashion. They had a lot of people that would donate, designer brand clothing.
Like
and so,
costumes that were worn on Broadway or
no,
just...
it's just fashion. It's clothing. So it's like stuff that would have been on the runway or like Chanel and Louis Vuitton and things like that. But old.
Okay.
Like legit cool old stuff. And my very first day we were we started in the coats. And we ended up getting into fur coats. And it was many varieties of kinds of fur.
Okay.
And so we pull out this one jacket and I'm describing it and the number and everything. And then my partner who worked there was calling out stuff. And he was like, guess what this is made of? And I was like, I don't know. And it was black and it was kind of rough and it kind of looked a little raggedy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't ugly. I mean, it was a lovely coat. Obviously, it was well made. He was like, it's gorilla.
No way.
I was like, what? Are you allowed to have this? And he was like, it was donated to us, so it wasn't like, and I doubt they'll ever put it on display because I'm sure.
I've never heard of that.
It was weird.
It's always the soft mink.
They were always like mink, but it was just this weird thing that someone
Gorilla,
must have specially made and then donated to the museum.
That's next level money. I mean, I guess they probably weren't endangered then, but like,
well, it was really old. It was really old. Like it wasn't like anything recent. I mean, it was probably from like the 30s or something. And so it was just like, wow, this is
kind of gross.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this. I feel a little.
That's weird.
I know, isn't that
a
wild?
gorilla fur coat, huh?
Yeah,
What else was in
on
there?
the inside of the coat had the person's name embroidered in it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So is that stuff just like it's just permanently in a closet, or
well, they rotate it. Like I don't know if you've ever been to one of the Mint museums. They have two museums, and they keep what they call costumes collection, but it's really fashion collection. And they'll do fashion throughout the years. They'll do different themes and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But
And so that was mainly your job as a registrar or curator or whatever would be you had to take the work in, work with the artist, get it there, get it hung or displayed, and then take it down, right?
well, in a bigger museum, there would be a separate person or team that would actually do the installation.
Okay.
But in a smaller museum like where I worked, I did both.
Yeah.
Because we're not as big as the Met, where there's
Yeah.
like teams of people, you know?
Yeah.
So there were just like 4 or 5 full-time employees where I was working. So
Yeah.
I had to kind
So
of pull double
you got to
duty.
tell people the story of the weirdest installation you've ever seen.
Okay, so
You ever had to do
what?
the weirdest installation you ever had to do? I don't know what you would call it. I would just call it doing an installation, but there's probably a fancy term for it.
Install.
Installing. There we go. What's the fanciest thing you've ever installed?
Well, the fanciest.
No, not fancy.
The weirdest. You want to know the weirdest.
Yeah, we want to know the weird
So we
stuff.
did this international exhibition with a university in Puebla, Mexico.
Okay.
And so it was all these, it was a large, I don't know, there's probably 80 to 100 artworks in this.
From different people.
Yeah, and there would be like 3 to 5 from each artist.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a huge amount of art. It wasn't like 100 artists. It
Okay.
was, a group of works from each artist.
Yeah.
And this one artist, well, so I also had 4 to 6 college students working for me at any given time. And so when we did installations, it was like a huge team effort. And so I would get the students to unpack things for me, and then we would get them laid out. The curator would go through and kind of lay everything out and put everything where he wanted it to be. And then we would hang it up, and I would do the lighting and the labels and yada, yada, yada. So they were unpacking. We all were unpacking. I was doing something else at the time. I think I'd been answering emails, and when I came back up into the gallery, they had already gotten started unpacking. And my boss, Hank, calls me over. He's like, "Come look at this." And he was a practical joker. He was always playing pranks on me in particular, probably because I would always be like, I would always react.
You fall for it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, "Come over and look at this." And I start walking over, and from a distance, I can see what he's pointing at is this artwork. And it's on a whiteboard, and it's got like this acrylic frame around it. So it looks like it's kind of like in its own little box.
And is it hung
It's
up
like
on the
floating.
wall, or is
It was just
laying
like
flat?
leaning against the wall on the floor.
But it's designed to be hung on the wall or lay
Yes,
flat. Okay.
designed to hang on the wall. And I'm like, well, that's cool, because it was like I don't know, 30 what looked like flat pebbles, and they were like teal and green and light gray and white, and they were just in this little grid pattern, and it was kind of pretty. And I was like, well, that's cool. And he had this big smile on his face. So I was like, something's up. I'm like, what's going on? He was like, look at this. What do you think this is? And I was like, is it not pebbles or rocks or sea glass or something? And he was like, no, look closer. And he's And I look closer and I'm like, I don't know, is it wax or plastic or something? He's like, look at that one. And he points to this one of the little things in there. And it had a hair on it, like this little short curly hair. Sorry. And I'm like, what the F is that? Why is there a hair on there? Please don't tell me you want me to open this up and get that damn hair out of there. Because that's what I thought he was going to ask me. I thought he was going to ask me to take it apart and get the hair out of it. He was like, no, that's part of it. And I'm like, what the F is going on? And he's like, it's soap. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. And I just like, was probably cussing and screaming and like, oh, not screaming, yelling, but like, oh my gosh, that's so disgusting. Like, what is going on here? What is happening? He's like, it's a process installation thing. And like the artist would.
So what was it?
So the artist took fresh bars of soap and he would distribute them in bathrooms around the city.
In Mexico.
And in that area, it was not uncommon to have bathhouses. Mm-hmm. And so some of the soap went in showers or at the sink or whatever. And so then he distributed them in all these showers, and then he went and recollected them and then displayed them. And I don't know like the whole meaning or whatever behind it. I'm sure there was one, but I was like, please tell me no one had to put that together. And he was like, no, it came put together. And I was like, oh my God, this is the weirdest, craziest thing I've ever seen.
I would love to hear
like
the reasoning.
Freaking pube hair on a soap.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the kind of hair, but that's just what you see. And you're just like, I don't know how I feel about this.
He had more pieces there. Were any of them like that? Like, were they?
No,
he had other stuff?
That artist had other pieces there, and there was not soap involved. It was, they were still kind of that same style, like the grid pattern or whatever, but it was other things. I don't remember what they were because you hear about that and you just forget about the rest. But like, but I mean, it was really, I'll tell you this, it was really pretty. And I was just like, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. I would put that in my living room. And then you're like, no, I wouldn't. I would absolutely not want that to come anywhere near me.
Oh man. That's one of the crazy things about art and artists too, especially some of that abstract stuff, is you can make up like some BS reason for why you did it, and it's cool. That's what makes it cool. Like you're selling that all the time. Did they always like when they sent work in, did they have a write-up on what it was, or is that like left to your imagination?
It depends. Usually artists would typically have a bio, some sort of statement about their work as a whole, like what their process is and why they do what they do and why, like the theme of their work. And a lot of times in the contemporary art world, you would get the opportunity to talk to the artist directly because contemporary art, they're almost always current and alive. Mm-hmm. And so the curators would usually meet with the artist beforehand and see the artwork and kind of get a feel for it. And so they would know. And in this case, the curator had been to Mexico and had met the artist and knew like the vibe or whatever that was behind the thought process.
It would be hilarious if you guys are looking at this and the curator comes up like, oh, that's my bar right there.
I would I would have just thrown up and been like, I'm done. Bye. And I could see my boss saying that just to get me to just right then. But no, he would. No.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I know confidently that the curator, he knew the process and the reasoning behind it all. But like, I'm like you, I hear these, I'm like, this is just BS. Yeah. Y'all are just all professional bullshitters. Yeah. Like this is too much. It looks cool and you're a great storyteller, but like, come on here.
Yeah.
I think that's why I appreciate I should say style of art that you're in, because it's like you don't have to have a BS story. You can see the talent. You're either are talented or you're not. Like you can just see it, that traditional classic style. Yeah. And I really have a great appreciation for that
Yeah.
because of the weird things I've seen in the contemporary world. It's just,
Oh my gosh.
it's so fascinating and interesting, but it's also just irritating.
Yeah.
And I know that's a personal thing for me. And
I think it's a personal thing for a lot of people.
yeah, I think so. I think it has to be, or I just don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling you this story one time, but I had some really, like, when I went to school, I really gravitated toward the life drawing classes. Because I was always like interested in sports and movement and, working out how tendons and ligaments and all that kind of, all the anatomy stuff like Da Vinci did. And so I really liked the life drawing stuff. And, but you get to some of those art classes and it's just like, I'm going to have to BS my way through this because that's what the professor wants. Like, I'm just not going to get through this class they want you to tap into your subconscious and do this and do that. And if you did representational work like ducks, like they don't get that,
It'd be like, but how do you feel about the ducks?
Exactly.
How do the ducks make you feel? That's
and I remember
therapy on paper.
I even hate to admit this because eventually I kind of caved. Like my one professor that would come in stoned all the time to critiques. I've told stories about him before. And what he did is he painted birds, but like as people, like birds in a suit or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember I literally did a composition of green-winged teal that were like flying, and it would have taken me 80 hours to finish it. And you have kids in class that are just slapping paint everywhere and then making up a BS reason, and they're loving it. And so there were a few times when I caved to that, like, okay, let me try to just come up. I was doodling, basically. I'm going to come up with some BS reason and then make a doodle for it and paint it, and that's going to be my deal. But I remember one time I had done, it was a skull with the top flipped back and like a whisk, like whisking up the brains like scrambled eggs. And I made up some BS reason for it, like it's about how a girl can mess with your head and make you do dumb things and all that kind of stuff. And it had, I can't remember what was in there, what all was in it, but it was like on a big piece of art paper, turned it in, got an A in the critique, and me and my buddy Jared loved it. So we put it in our room in our fraternity house because I was in a fraternity and we were rooming together, and he thought it was cool. Well, then I had another critique slip up on me. So I'm like, oh crap, what am I going to do? And I looked up and I took that thing out of the poster frame, rolled it up in my little portfolio carrier, took it to another critique, made up another BS story and got an A on it with the exact same sketch in 2 different classes a year apart. And it's just like, I don't know. But you do stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, I got away with it. And then it's like, what am I paying for?
Well, yeah, if you're thinking about it that way, it's like, this is ridiculous.
A joke. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, what am I learning here?
Yeah.
But I mean, I had some professors that were very technical and I learned a lot. And then some professors that were just kind of like feely, like, oh, just paint with your emotions or whatever. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, but like there were always like, I don't know about you, but like I was weird in art school because I wasn't weird.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's like in high school, it's like you've got your art kids and they're kind of like the outcasts. Well, then in art school, like everybody's that. And I wasn't really that. So I became the weird one.
Yeah.
But like I noticed that there'd be cliques and they would team up together and they would BS for each other to convince the professor it was so good during our critiques. Like, oh, look at this, how this swirl goes this and it's opposite color of this. And I'm just like, I probably was making faces too. And that's probably why they didn't like me, because I was probably going, this is stupid. Like, it's crap. You can see that it's crap. Come on, guys.
Do you have pictures from those days? I would love to see college Cassie age.
I mean, I'm sure I do somewhere.
I mean, it's get class.
I was probably like drunk at the bar. Like I wasn't like, I was pretty wild. So I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure I looked exactly the same. My hair was shorter. I mean, I haven't really changed. I still had glasses. Like, I don't think I changed that much since.
Because we've talked about the.
I was a lot sassier.
Really?
if that's
Then?
possible.
The the portfolio things, like the little uniform. So like when you're an undergrad, no matter what you're going into, like we had multimedia, graphic design, drawing, painting, whatever, any kind of communications in the visual arts, you had to start with the same classes, like the same portfolio classes, the same
Yeah.
stuff.
We had drawing 1 and 2. We had fundamentals of design.
Yes.
And which is where you learn about all the technical words and whatever.
Yep.
And you have to practice them all. And then painting 1 and 2, you had to do those.
Yep. But you had
And then figure drawing.
You had the
separate
big
thing.
black portfolio things.
Yep.
And so they're like, for those of you who hadn't seen them, they're like, I don't know, 2 feet by 3 feet. They have a
Yeah.
little handle and they unzip and unfold like a book, and you would put your art in there, and then you had a little blue tackle box.
Yeah.
that
Yours was
you
blue?
It was blue.
Mine was black.
Oh, well, you're cooler than me. Obviously. but I remember, like, and I was in a fraternity, so we were just a bunch of like dudes, you know.
They're
And-
probably like, what's all this crap you're carrying around?
Oh yeah, and I've never been like the artsy type. Like I've always been in like
I can't
sports
even
and the
picture
outdoors
you
and
like
stuff.
carrying all this crap around.
It was awful.
It's so embarrassing. Well, we like on ASU's campus, we're in the mountains and it
Mm-hmm.
rains all the time and it's really windy. And so I have to walk from my dorm all the way across campus to the art building. And it's like, I've got an umbrella. I've got my tackle box. I've got my portfolio, which I had one with a strap for this very reason. And it was like you had sails. I mean, it was just like you're trying to get around, and it's just like you look like a complete idiot. Yeah. People are staring at you, laughing, like, look at that art kid. So it's like I was a weird kid walking across campus, then I go in the building and be the weird kid because I was normal. And it's just like, I can't win around here. Like, this is like, I don't fit in anywhere.
But you would have like the kids in the, you know, like in our era, it was like spiked hair with like blonde tips, you know, and they're going into like business classes with their backpacks.
It was all
like,
goth for us, or like,
The art kids were?
because I'm a little older than you. So it was like, well, no,
Yeah.
not a lot older, but it was like goth, or they were like grunge.
The goth were always photography. I felt
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
They were always into photography.
Or printmaking.
Or printmaking. Yep.
And then you had
With
the like
grunge.
weird, like crazy dudes that were in sculpture. They
Yes.
were way more hands-on.
Yes.
And then
They were kind of the types that like didn't like might not take a shower for a week or so.
probably not for weeks.
Yeah.
And probably were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you had your art history kids that were just like nerdy.
The worst.
They were super nerdy, and they were like kind of like, I think of like a chihuahua. They were kind of like hyper, like anxious. They were always so anxious.
Anxious to
don't-
like. They were anxious to spit out dates. Like, oh, that period was between the 1900 and 19. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so relieving to me you saying this stuff, because these are things that like they're almost like universal. I feel like.
Well, I mean, yeah, you went to school in Illinois, and I went to school in North Carolina, and it's like the same stereotypes. That's pretty funny.
But I just remember like my buddies, and it killed me. Oh, I used to dread these days. And now like it's what my career is based on. But we'd go outside to work, where all the class in the spring and early fall, they would take like the drawing class into the quad to work.
Oh, yeah.
And
You'd have to
so
draw stuff from the real life.
So you would have your giant portfolio, your little tackle box with like all your fellow nerds, and you'd go out there and you'd have to sit in the quad, and
Your
just
buddies would be walking by, and you're like,
flipping you the bird, you know, yelling.
and you're like, move it along, shut up.
Yelling
Or we would
comments
always
that are not
be
politically
like,
correct.
go to the parkway and go draw cows, or go to a field and go draw cows. There's one professor always wanted us to draw cows, and I'm like, it's a box with legs. Like, give me something more interesting than a cow. And then, so yeah, we always had to do stuff like that, and I hated it. I just hated. Go to the student union and draw people walking by. I'm like, I'm drawing strangers. They're clearly uncomfortable that I'm drawing them. They're trying to drink their freaking coffee, and I'm like staring at them. trying to draw. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I'm such a nerd. I'm such a freak drawing people. It's like stalker class. No, just kidding. Not really.
But my college was surrounded by the hood, so we couldn't go off camera. There was no going to the parkway. And I remember, this is bringing back so many memories now, but there was a squirrel that didn't have any hair on its tail. And that is the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Like
a
the whole tail?
But so it's a rat tail. You take the hair off a squirrel's tail, it looks like a rat. And it looked like
how did it
came out of
live?
a science
Don't
building.
they use
It was
that
like a
fluff
failed
for
experiment.
balance?
I don't know. But it was there. We'd always see it when we were sketching. But our fraternity was like big red and yellow like shirts. And I would you're sitting there sketching the tree in front of the hall, whatever it is. Like sketching the gargoyle on the top, And I would see like 3 dudes in red shirts out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, crap, And you're like,
here they
hiding
come
behind your sketch pad, and they're, yelling profanities. But I always felt like, when
and
you're
they're
carrying
flicking
that
you off.
thing,
Draw this.
well, they weren't doing that. They were doing draw this, But it's like I feel like someone should be pulling over next to me in a car and like throwing an egg at me and splashing water on me and yelling,
Yeah.
Hey, art dork.
Yeah. Or you get those that want to know about it and want to watch you.
Oh, that's
and
the
it's
worst.
like I don't know you. Go away. Like this is not what I signed up for. Please don't watch me draw.
Oh man. I had some professors too. Like we talked about this at one point, but I always felt like as you got older, that's when the BS got stronger. Like, when you're young and you're doing life drawing stuff, you can tell who's good and who's not, who's got some ability. But then as you get older, the critiques get more woo woo and more fluffy, and they got worse.
That's when the storytelling starts.
That's when the
coming
storytelling
in.
started.
Well, then you get in the professional world, and it's like legit. I've heard some serious bullshitters in my day.
You remember any of them?
No, because it's just like you just learn to spot them.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I just didn't have the patience for it. Now my boss loved it. He thought it was great, and he would just bullshit with them. And it's just like, I don't know, a vibe, if you will. But it's just how it is. And
how does some of those like crazy, weird, out there artists make it? Have they just sold?
It's all
themselves?
about who you know.
Yeah.
And it's all about what you can talk people into buying. So, I mean, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, in the more classical, traditional realm, it's like getting yourself out there, and it's all about connections. It's all about people knowing that you're a legit artist. You're not just talented, but you've got a name. It's because art really is an investment, and it's a good investment because it's like real estate. It's always appreciating.
Yeah.
But if it's not worth anything, if the artist is not ever going to be known, then it's just never going to go up in value. It's just going to stay stagnant.
Yeah.
And so there is a huge element in learning the art of BSing.
Yeah.
So that you can, it's all about, what do they call those things? Like networking. It's all about networking. And so, I mean, that's a real thing. It's really, really important in the art world if you want to be successful artists. And then, like, it's like, a ton of people.
Yeah.
When you go to SeaWee, you meet even more. And the more people you meet, the more people, I mean, you've had people that have come by and looked at your booth at SeaWee like every year. And then finally like, now I'm going to buy.
Yep.
Or you were Artist of the Year last year. You made it, I'm going to buy now, and that's a real
thing,
reality for artists.
Yeah.
So they legitimately learn to BS.
Yeah.
To get to that point, I think.
Yeah. I still don't get it. Because, I mean, I don't know. Like, you see some really and it's all, there's a side to it, too, where it's like it's worth what people will pay for it.
Yeah.
And so if people really see value in it, they'll pay for it. But some of it's just like, I just literally, it looks like the stuff they decorate hotels with. And it's like,
generic,
that's fine. It's generic. Like it's kind of visually appealing, but
it's easy on the eyes, if you will. It's like you look at it and you're like, oh, that's nice, and then you move on. It's
easy on the eyes is good. But it's not really designed to get attention. Well, sometimes. But my point is, like, the work itself doesn't tell a story. You've got to make up something behind it, I feel like, some of those to sell. Where I would like to think that my work tells a story in and of itself. Well, like the one behind here, I just decided to paint a red-tailed hawk the other day, and he's catching a mouse. Yeah. And, like, that can help kind of tell a story. You can assume what that story is going to be about. But,
well, you can visualize it in real life and in the movement, and you don't really have to tell a story for people to kind of get it.
Yeah.
Whereas in contemporary art, which is what I was taught, like in school and where I worked for a while, it's just you have to explain those things because it's not necessarily self-explanatory. And I think that's why I wanted to get out of that world. Yeah. Or that, maybe not world, but area. Because it's just not for me. I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I just want to I don't want to have an explanation all the time. And I don't want to have to listen to somebody BS when I know they're full of it. And I know that's crap on a canvas. And like, or see something that's really good and the artists get no attention and I have to fight for how good it is because I know there's talent and I know it's good. And that would piss me off too. Yeah. Because they weren't going to bullshit anybody. Yeah. And so I'm like fighting for the underdog and like, like I have any say so in anything. But so.
What would be hilarious is if I just made up reasoning, like the BS reasoning for my work. Like this deer is a deer that I encountered in 2001 and he grew into this. And the reason that this red leaf is red is because his heart beats for the dough that he's trying to get.
I would be like, scrape. I'd be in the background going.
He peed on himself. He peed on himself this morning in a scrape, trying to attract the doe that is just lost out there somewhere. He doesn't know where she's
Isn't it funny how, like, when you BS, your masculinity just goes out the window, like, immediately?
Oh, man. It's just like Romeo and Juliet, but for whitetails.
If you were really like that, I'd be like, I got to go.
That would be awesome. But it would be funny because it would be so blatantly obvious that people would be like, oh. Ugh.
Some people would probably eat it up, but most people would be like, who's this joker over here? Like, just, no.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. I remember you were talking about how uncomfortable it was to, I thought it was hilarious when you said the people that you were trying to sketch were uncomfortable because I can totally see that. Yeah. But we had a life drawing class one time, my freshman and sophomore year, and this never happened. Rumor has it happened in another class, but if the nude model didn't show up, one of the students could do it, and you could get an A for the day. Oh, yeah. Which it never happened with us, but I think that'd be so weird for the rest of the semester to do that.
I'm pretty modest, so I wouldn't want to just.
It'd be weird.
I wouldn't want to do it. I mean, I respect the people that feel comfortable enough to do it. And obviously I've had to draw nudes plenty of times. But I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. Plus, I can't sit still. Yeah. Like I would be like, my foot's numb, sorry guys, and I'd have to shake it out. Like that they'd be like, Cassie, we can't hire you ever again. Like, no.
We had one model and she was big. I mean, she was big. And I'm not sure she was all there, but she had like a bowl cut haircut. And I think that I really don't think she was all there, which is why, trying to find somebody that's available to nude model for college kids for $10 an hour on a Tuesday at 9 a.m. Like you're not going to get working professionals, No. But, the point, I think Ken Carlson was his name, but he was great instructor. But what you would start with is you would mark, you're always trying to find a reference point to get your composition right on your paper. And you would find like the shoulders, you draw the lengths of the arms. You basically kind of drew a rough skeleton and then filled in the muscles and flesh on top of it. But dude, she was all circles. Like there were no angles here. It was like drawing the Michelin Man. And I know that they couldn't find anybody else, but it was like, dude, I can't even see a skeleton in this frame. Like,
well, that's when you have to
know.
do contour drawings, and then you have to just do your blocks of shadows, and that's it. There's no skeleton.
Shading.
You just practice your shading.
It's like when they give you the apple or the still life, and you have to like practice shading a smooth surface for an exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be.
I always liked doing still lifes.
I like still lifes too. I thought they were cool. They were really random though, so you couldn't really hang them anywhere because it'd be like a vase next to a hat, next to grapes, next to some weird object trinket, and it's like, can you not pick stuff that goes together so I could actually like put this somewhere? Because this is really good. I like how it turned out, but I can't hang anywhere. It's too weird. Like
I have seen some pretty cool pieces they're kind of like redneck still lifes. It's like a duck decoy and a box of ammo and then a shotgun or something. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. You should do a still life.
We should do that.
You haven't done one of those. Mm-mm. You should do a still life. See what happens.
That'd be cool. Oh, you sound like an art professor. Just do it and see what happens. Oh, man. It is pretty wild, though. Did you have any professors that you liked or disliked?
I had some professors that I loved and a lot of professors that I just couldn't stand. But I really had a hard time in college just in general because I think for myself, and that's not really what they like. They want you to memorize and regurgitate in a lot of places, and I'm not really down with that. And so my art theory professor, so I did this art theory class, and it was just art ideas and theories. It was like literally a class on BS.
Yeah, like what?
And like our first objective, he would be like our second day class, he's like, I want you to bring in an object that is art and an object that's not art.
Okay. And
so, me being the smart aleck that I am, I brought in a ball of clay, and it served us both. I know. And I made everybody in that class so pissed because it's art is subjective. Yeah. You're teaching me contemporary art, and you're going to tell me what is and what isn't. You can't. Yeah. You can't. And so I pissed him off. He hated me. Kid. I was that kid. By the end of the class, he was so glad to get rid of me.
I'm kind of impressed though, because I feel like you could go on a 10-minute BS rant about how this is a ball of clay until the artist touches it and produces a art.
Oh, you can go in so many different directions.
You can tell them about Jesus.
That was definitely not going to go over well there.
But I kind of felt like he would be really impressed by that.
I figured too. I was like, this is going to be an easy A. It was very deep, and of course was like eloquent about it.
Yeah.
And
why was he pissed?
It wasn't what he wanted. I don't know.
What did the other kids bring in?
Random crap that we're talking about college kids. They don't have real art. Like, they have posters and tapestries. Posters. It's like one kid brought this like decorative like giant fork that was on her wall, and she was like, this is not art. Because it was just like for her kitchen, like that just hung there. And then she brought like a photograph that she'd taken that was really nice. And so like that was like a legit attempt, and good explanation. She did a good job. And I don't really remember what anyone else brought. It was just like random stuff like that. Like this is a craft, and this is like some people brought a mug, and then they'd bring like a picture. Yeah, like really. And then there's me, the asshole with a ball of clay. It's both.
Oh, art theory. If they could just film the conversations that probably happened in an art theory class in 2023 and put them on YouTube.
I'm sure it was so obnoxious and like
old timers
it's
would
like,
lose their mind.
how can we teach pretension? Like
Teaching pretension. That's a pretty good way to think it.
That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the... Did you learn anything in that class? Like, because I'm genuinely curious. Like, where did that class go? Like, what is...
It really just taught about the theories over different art periods and stuff like that. Like the thought patterns of modern artists and the thought patterns of impressionists and the thought patterns. And so it really was just kind of like, more like, what were the mental trends of the art world? It was really interesting, actually. We had to read a ton. Yeah. But it was pretty good.
That kind of sounds to me like the meaning of Life 101.
It was
kind of anywhere you could go with that.
Yeah, it was. It's like I really liked it and really hated it all at the same time. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think I would have liked it better with a different professor.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah.
He was kind of an asshole.
I'm sure. I mean, I bet there's ways to keep that kind of stuff fun.
I think so.
Yeah. I've always thought it would be cool to go teach a class just kind of on like art business, just like contracts and stuff.
They need that. Like,
man,
there was nothing that taught any of the artists what to do. Like, you have all these art majors and then they're done. And it's like, good luck. And it's like, all you did was teach me how to make art. You didn't teach me what to do. You didn't teach me how to write an artist's bio or an artist statement or a portfolio or where do I go to get a job? How do I get a job? How do I sell my artwork? What tax paperwork do I need to do? Like, they don't teach you any of that real life stuff. And that's what they need to know more than anything.
Yeah. How many... So you've seen a lot of students. I don't know if you kept track of them, but how many do you think stayed in art as a career after that?
There's one student that I know of that she's got a pretty successful business in Charlotte as an interior designer. Well, she's not really an interior designer, but she curates like home goods and like this high-end boutique home goods stores. So that's pretty cool. I know one of my students went down to Miami and got her master's down there. I think she's still down there. But like I really have kind of lost track of a lot of them.
I felt like there were two tracks when I was going through school, and you either studied like graphic design or multimedia, and you went and worked for an agency or something like that, or you got on the teaching path.
Yeah.
And it always kind of bothered me because you're just perpetuating the cycle. Like a lot of the professors wanted to, the university was their paycheck that paid their bills so they could create. And there's a certain value to that, I feel like, that it keeps... We need art, we need creativity, we need new ideas, we need new visual things, but at the same time, a lot of those people never learn reality. They just go from academia right into academia and stay in academia, and they never leave it. And I just felt like my best professors in college were the ones that literally, they either worked in the business world for a long time
and then came back
to teach, or they worked during the day and taught a night class.
Yeah, my best professors, they were what's called adjunct professors. So they weren't, they were kind of technically part-time professors. So they'd come in and teach 2 or 3 classes, and then they were actually professional artists. And the teaching was their side gig that was like consistent money. And then some of my other good professors were not necessarily retired, but they'd been in the business for a long time, and they just wanted to chill a little bit more. They wanted to do less art because they just were tired of hustling. Yeah. And so they got this professor gig so that they could do that and still make art, but not have to have the pressure of the hustle. Yep. And then you've got your tenured professors that are kind of like in the middle, and it's like they've made a career out of teaching. And so they're either just really good teachers on technical stuff, like if it's a technical area, or if they're just teaching painting, then they're just like, unless they're teaching you how to draw a still life. Yeah. They're just they're like those who can't do teach kind of situation. Yeah. That's just what I experienced. I don't know.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should start an academy. There was a dude in Blowing Rock that what was his? I did a residency there at the end of the road in Blowing Rock.
Oh, that house right in front of the museum down there.
He was like an OG. He was like super wealthy from his work or something too.
They change out artists there all the time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know who it was when you were there.
Well, no, I mean the guy that started it.
Oh.
Like back in the early 1900s.
I know who you're talking about because it's not Dangerfield, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, that's the guy.
No.
No, that's not the guy. That's some other thing.
That's the comedian.
No, I don't remember his. I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah. Well, what are some of my quirks? We talked about all the other artist quirks. I'm curious to see what you have to say.
Artists are not there's not a typical stereotype for artists. They're all over the place, personality-wise. So I noticed whenever I'd visit artists' homes and studios for their, to look at their art and gather their art.
I bet you learn a lot.
For exhibitions, you really learn a lot about who they are when you see their space. So you really learn a lot about people. And I found that artists were always an extreme of some kind. But you have your hoarders. Like a lot of artists collect things.
Okay.
So they'll collect particular things. Like I collect skulls or bones or bugs or trinkets or beads or they'll collect stuff.
Yeah.
This or
that's
found
outside
objects.
of their art.
That's just in their house.
Okay.
It's just around. It's their inspiration.
Okay.
And so some of them would be, I don't know, it's just random stuff that would be trash to me or you, but it's really important to them and inspiring.
Okay.
And so you've got your collectors that are eccentric and they have lots of stuff everywhere and it's just lots of, they're borderline hoarders or hoarders, I don't know. They're not necessarily dirty or gross, but they're just collectors. They have lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've got your other extreme where you've got OCD minimalists, very type A. I only want this thing and it has to be here and it has to be in this direction. And they're really.
Yeah.
And so it's they're either extremely orderly and OCD or they're extremely free and collect things and are just woo, oh, that's fascinating or this and that. So it's it's a really wide gamut of things and you're not really either of those things. You're kind of like a normal dude, which is very unusual.
So I'm weird that way.
You're weird in that you're not really weird.
I'm interested in that. Did that craziness show and OCD show up in their work, or would you show up to somebody who you've seen their portfolio and then they're Steve Jobs in a black turtleneck?
Sometimes it was
OCD.
You knew what you were going to walk into.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd be whoa, I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
It was, we did a huge installation of folk art the very first time I worked full time. Mm-hmm. And folk art is it's very elementary looking and it's usually using found objects. And it's actually a really interesting realm of the art world, but it is in its own little bubble, over here to the side. But we borrowed this one particular collection from this one man, and it was a huge collection of artwork. And you would think if you've seen folk art, which I don't know, have you ever seen any folk art before?
Honestly, when you said folk art, I'm thinking of I don't know, children's books or banjo picking.
For some reason, not like that.
I think, is that folk music?
That's folk music.
Okay, I'm thinking folk art. I have no idea what
You'll
folk
have to
art
Google it because I didn't really know a whole lot about folk art until you're going to Google it now.
Wow. we talk.
But anyway, so we were picking at this collection, and folk art is usually like, I mean, you've got like people, like the artists would paint on, the artists are typically not educated, and they're not always, but a lot of times mentally
Rural?
challenged and very rural.
Okay.
And mentally challenged is probably not the right way to put it, but
Sounds like us.
They're special. And so it's a very elementary looking type of art, but it's interesting because it's like, these are people that are not educated in making this art and don't necessarily communicate with other artists and are probably not doing it for a living. They just make stuff. But there's people like that all over the country that are making similar art. And it's really kind of, the fascinating part is they make such similar art that goes with one another, yet they know nothing about each other. And it's kind of interesting. But anyway, we were doing this installation in the guy's house. You would think would be just like cluttered with all kinds of weird things and odd, but it was like really clean and really pristine. And it was homey, but it was like minimalist. Like he had a TV, but it didn't have a TV in it. It was just like a fake fire in it. Like it was just a TV box, and it was just like really minimal home.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting because here I'm looking, it kind of looks like stuff you'd see on quilts or
let me see
like
what you're
elementary landscapes. Just really colorful, bright. But then there's also some.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Like home, like that kind of stuff.
Everything's really flat and not 3D. Very, and
there's
there's
children's
a lot
book looking stuff
of biblical quotes and stuff in them.
Okay.
A lot of like weird kind of faces that kind of look like demons, and a lot that look like angels. It's really
okay.
I'll have to send you some. The Hickory Museum has a huge collection of folk art.
I must have Googled the colorful folk art because it's not what I saw.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not a really.
I tell you what I thought was cool. We went on an Alaskan cruise one time, and like the Alaskan
art,
that
stuff's
like
really
natives,
cool.
The patterns and like the craftsmanship. I mean, some of that stuff is just like
that's really beautiful.
Super cool, like kind of tribal tattoo type stuff. But there's a lot of animals, a lot of wildlife represented there, and I thought that stuff was amazing.
Okay, don't get sucked into your phone.
Sorry. Squirrel.
That's one of your things is you get like hyper focused.
Yep.
And you really do better when you can focus on one particular thing for like a day, really. Like I'm going to paint today, or I'm going to do podcasts today, or I'm going to graphic design today, or I'm going to pay bills today. And if you get sidetracked, it's like your little brain can't do that.
Doesn't work.
It just kind of starts breaking down.
Yep. I've told Kim I would rather juggle a bowling ball for 8 hours a day than 8 ping pong balls for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wired that way.
Yeah.
And
you're a one thing at a time kind of guy.
if, like I try to schedule meetings before, like early in the day or maybe like right before lunch or something like that. And it's like, if I have 3 meetings, I might as well chalk the whole day up as a loss and schedule 15 meetings. And we just do meetings all day.
Yeah.
Because I can't go in and out of.
Yeah.
And Kim doesn't really understand that. She's completely opposite.
Well, she's a multitasker, so she's doing lots of things at a time.
But it takes me, I tell her like it might take me 20 minutes to like kind of get into something and be able to focus on it. And then if I'm interrupted, it takes me a while to come out of that zone and come in. So, like I can ask her a question in the middle of something else, she'll just handle it and move on.
Yeah.
But if I'm in like creative painting mode and somebody comes in and asks me a question, it may cost me 45 minutes or an hour of like good productive time because I got to come back. I don't know.
I always feel bad because I can get
world.
in the zone too, and I'll get focused. Like if I'm picking out frames for you or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ask Ryan what he wants about this. And like I'm in my zone, forgetting that you're in your zone. And I'll come in here and I'll ask you a question and I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come in here. And then I always get you sidetracked because you want to help. And I'm just like, dang it, I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
I've tried to get better about it.
No, Kim tells me I just need to shut my door, which I probably need to do. But
yeah.
I don't know. I
I just know to like get you at the beginning of the day or the end of the day.
Yep.
Or lunch break, and then
Yes.
it will work okay.
But yeah, I definitely try to batch things, especially if I have to like make actual decisions about things. I
Yeah.
can't just, I don't know. I'm not always there.
I've also realized that I can't come to you and be like, I need to have a conversation, because it must be my tone. You immediately think the worst.
Oh, well, who
You're like,
says that?
Who
Like,
died?
We need to have a conversation. Like, that's never good.
My husband gets like that too. Like, I'll be like, Neil, can we talk? And he'll be like, is everything okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to break up with you. We've been married 10 years. Like, I just need to talk. What do you want to talk about? And I'm like, oh, what is it about my voice? It's so scary.
Well, you're usually pretty chill about everything. I don't know. I don't know why that is, but it is like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything.
I think it's just the statement.
The
we need to
tone.
talk.
Yeah. Like one thing that bothers me in the deer hunting world right now is when people see a deer like that they're after, like a certain,
Yeah.
they call it an encounter.
An
Like,
encounter?
Yes. Yes. See what I'm saying? And they're like, yeah, we had an encounter with this deer last year, and we had an encounter
Like an
in early
alien
October.
invasion?
That's what I
it
think.
sounds like to me.
You know? And when I and you just take it out of that context, if I went to Kim and said, hey, yeah, I had an encounter with Joel today at
That
the
would
gas
be
station.
like, we
You'd
got
be
in an
like,
altercation.
Did you get in a fight? Like,
Was there bloodshed?
what do you mean you had an encounter with Joel at the gas station? Well, I saw him and I waved at him. An encounter? Like, what is that?
It's dramatic.
It's very dramatic, you know. And I come from a place where it's like, oh, how many deer did you see? I saw a buck. He was across the field over there. Man, I had a buck walk right underneath me. Not, I had an encounter with a deer at 10 yards. Yeah. I don't know.
But if someone said that to me, I'd be like, did it go like this? Was it like this? Like,
I think
were there
I'm
hooves to
alone
the
in that
face?
because
Did you make it?
the word encounter is everywhere in the deer world, and I've never said it in my whole life, and probably never will.
maybe is it like younger hunters?
No, it's
that are saying-
everybody. It's just the thing now. It's more. I think it's just more dramatic is the thing, and people are trying to tell like epic stories about stuff.
Well,
but,
I mean, you know.
I mean, when I go, I see deer. I don't encounter deer. You know.
I don't encounter deer.
But the look on your face is exactly how I feel
Yeah.
when it's like, huh? You did
Yeah.
what? But whatever.
I immediately think alien invasion. What
Yeah,
is-
did you get in a knife fight with somebody? I mix encounter and altercation easily.
Yeah, maybe that's what it
maybe
is.
that's it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe we're more alike than I thought.
Maybe we're the outcasts from the art world and
Yeah.
the non
In the regular world.
Oh man. But I don't know. There's times where like I've even heard you say like I need to do an artist statement, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do an artist statement. I want to throw up in my mouth when you say that.
Well,
There's so much about the art world that it's on. When you said like teaching pretension, like I feel like there's a lot of art stuff like that. It's like it's supposed to be inaccessible for people, and I don't know. I just was raised on a farm, kind of blue collar. I don't feel that way.
I don't feel like the intention is to be inaccessible, but I think that's what happens.
Maybe that's a byproduct of the BS of trying to talk it up.
Yeah.
And make up stories to get people to pay
It
more for it.
becomes
They
unapproachable.
want it to be unapproachable for
Well, it becomes,
normal people.
Not, what's the word? Not friendly.
Yeah.
That's not the word I'm thinking of, but there's a better word for it. But
Yeah.
it becomes kind of like intimidating.
Intimidating is a good word.
Rather than just like, we just want to know who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I need your artist statement
Yeah.
and bio.
Yeah.
And you're going, what's the difference? And
Well,
there's a huge difference. The bio is your history and how you became who you are. And your statement is about your current work and what it means to you and your audience now.
every time
And you're going,
every time I've ever read an artist's statement, it makes me want to throw up within 5 words. Like if you say like subconscious in the opening statement, no, done. Out. I don't want to listen to it. I don't care. Like my goal is to connect. I'm done. Out. Don't care. My goal is to tap into, I'm out. Don't care.
Your artist statement should be,
do it. I can't
I'm
do
just
it.
a good old boy trying to paint shit I like.
Yeah. It's just like,
I like to paint animals and deer.
I want to change.
No, it'd be more sophisticated than that, but
I want to contribute to the atmosphere of hunt camp, like bringing the outdoors indoors.
there's your artist statement. It's
That's
one
it.
sentence.
That's it.
A lot of people want their statement to be like 5 pages long, and it's like, come on, come on, guys.
I'm not. I don't know. I'm not in a period.
I remember
of
that
my
when I
life.
first started. I'm like, do you have an artist statement? And you're like, what's that? Or no. You're like,
I
I'm
knew
not
what it
doing
was.
that or
I was
something.
like, ugh.
I was like, okay. So that was a learning curve for me working for you, was not handling stuff with white gloves.
Yeah.
And not like, because there's nothing pretentious about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so there was an element of like, I had to kind of retrain my brain and be like, chill.
Yeah.
I had to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Which was good. But I was still able to bring skill. You're still a legit, artist. And so it's like my skills were still able to be worthwhile to the business.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't my skills weren't in vain. So there's still challenges, but it's not, I don't know. It's just been really refreshing to be able to be more real.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree there. And I rely on like, you and Kim too, to kind of like level me up a little bit. Like I can always tell if I pitch something that's like white trashy, you guys are like, let's not do that.
That's not that often.
Yeah, sometimes though. And I appreciate it because it's like, yeah, you're right. Like we can't, I come from a place where you were like straightening nails to recycle them.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn some of that too, like to get out of that if we're going to be efficient and effective. But I don't know. It's weird to me because not weird, it's helpful because all of my like presentation drive, perfectionist tendencies go into my art, and I don't really carry those into a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
Like I don't like the way I dress and just day-to-day stuff. I don't operate that way. And so it's nice because you guys kind of pick up the pieces there of like, hey, I know you put 100% into here and only 20% over here, but we need to add another 80% over here, and it kind of rounds it out. So it's beneficial.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to compliment you. Sorry.
I'm just a nerd. I get it.
No, not at all. No. It's not that. But just like the way you guys pack stuff up is really good.
Yeah.
And I'm the type where I'm like OCD over like how the art works in the frame, but like I don't care about the bubble wrap. That's just a functional thing to get it to the person. You guys are like, this needs some TLC too.
To me, presentation is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I want our customers to open up their packages and it to be an experience.
Yeah.
And I also want to keep in mind that I recognize that not everybody's going to open up a box very delicately.
Yeah.
And so I don't want someone to take a utility knife or a steak knife and go to town on cutting their box open and damage the work. So I try to really be thoughtful about, okay, if I know nothing about art and I just got a really cool painting, am I going to damage this coming out of the box? Like, I don't want them to be sad that they hurt the thing that they really love.
Yeah.
And I want, our people to get more than they pay for. Like, I want them to be really ecstatic. Like, hey, this was like worth a lot more than what I paid. Like, I want them to have that feeling. Like, I really did get a good deal because this is really, really professional and really put together.
Yep.
So.
And you're really good at hanging stuff on the wall too.
Well, I mean, I did.
You have
for
like
a
a
long
formula.
Time.
It's impressive to me.
It's a hanging formula.
Yeah.
And you never give me enough time to like think about it. You're like, just put it here. I'll hold it up. Where do you want it to be? I'm like, I can mark it. Give me a pencil and a calculator and a ruler, and I'm good.
And that's the kind of stuff that I appreciate because I'm like, knocking. Oh, I think the stud's here. Didn't hit it. Didn't hit it. Didn't hit it. Hit it. And there's like 6 holes on the wall.
I know.
But there's a painting covered up, so it's okay. See, but prime example. I'll put all of my effort into the work itself, and then I might half-ass how we hang it, and there's 6 holes in the drywall.
Well,
and
your
I'm cool with
artwork
it.
is that, and my artwork is making your artwork look good.
That's what I need. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's fun.
Round it
I
out.
like it.
So, any other weird stories? You want to wrap it up?
I don't know. I can't think of any more.
We'll probably have to do this one again in like a year.
Yeah.
But we typically sit around and like we'll talk while we're working or framing or something, and you'll start telling weird art stories, and I'll start telling weird artist stories.
Like we'll like remember. Oh yeah, there was this time.
Yeah. I would die though if we could find a picture of you on campus with your portfolio and your black box and your umbrella.
I feel sure there's not a picture of it, but
I would love it.
God, I would love to see a picture of you and your frat boys making fun of you while you're drawing.
All the time.
So funny.
All the time. And and there's always it's funny too because there's always an art building, so it's like a little revolving door of weirdness. But not all of them were weird. Like I had some buddies that studied multimedia, and they were like just cool. Like they were way cooler than me.
I feel like there's some schools where the weird factor isn't really there, as much. I feel like there's some schools where it's just kind of like normal, traditional artwork, traditional, and it's kind of like you're just focused on skill and talent. I feel like there's places like that. We just must have had a very similar art experience.
I think we did. I mean, like I was on a lot of scholarship. We didn't have any money, and so the thing that was crazy to me is like, the only way I was at Bradley is because I had a lot of scholarship.
Yeah.
The only way. We couldn't have afforded it otherwise. But there were other kids that were just like, the purple-haired kid, goth in photography class, and it's like, we're paying the same tuition and you're paying out of pocket. Like, I don't know how you do this or what you're going to do.
They're just acting out because their parents are rich.
Yeah. But I mean, which is why I studied graphic design, because I knew that like, I have to go like get a job after this. I can't go into academia or anything.
I was at my 20-year class reunion
for high school or college?
High school.
Okay.
And someone was asking me, and I don't remember this. They were asking me, they're like, did you ever go, I remember you were going to go into graphic design because you said you wanted to design CD covers. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, you wanted to design CD covers for like Dave Matthews or something. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Priorities when you're 18.
Yeah.
I was like, I did not do any of that. But
the big one I remember, it's funny you brought that up. My freshman year, you're gonna design video games, because that was early 2000s. Video games were starting to explode. We're a decade past original Nintendo, and we're into the big stuff. Xbox might have been out, I'm not sure, but that was the thing. Kids that just like loved to play video games and could draw a little bit, they were going to go design video games, and it's like, don't think you're really going to do that, because like you got to have some skill to design video games.
That's legit hard.
You either got to be very talented drawing, like comic book creative wise, or you have to be a developer, but you can't.
And that's such a specific technical niche.
Oh man.
Like that's just a whole, I never learned a lot. I learned enough about graphic design to know that that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there were like multiple kids that said they were going to do that. And it's like, I think that's a pretty hard thing to do. It's like saying, I love playing football. I want to play in the NFL. It's
it's like, well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
You're only 5 feet tall. I don't know that's going to work out.
Well, appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's been fun.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
Hopefully the people weren't too bored with art talk.
No. They probably made fun of us too. Like, that's what those dorks were doing in the quad all the time.
That's what
when we saw
that weird
them.
giant briefcase was.
You remember Creepy Cassie that used
Creepy
to draw us?
Cassie.
She was in class the whole time. She was actually getting credits for that. I thought she was just weird. Oh, man. Well, we appreciate you guys being here, and stay tuned. Next episode's coming up. Hey, everybody, be sure to check out ryankirby.com to see all my latest originals, canvas prints, paper prints, apparel, and more. We are not sponsored by anybody, so one of the ways that we produce this show is through people like you that buy my work. We appreciate it, and you guys are the ones that I create it for. So again, check out ryankirby.com to shop for your wildlife art.